All right, good evening. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our September 14th school board meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
It's to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Jill.
Frank Kearney,
Here.
Cheryl Cerniglia,
Here.
Amy Millett,
Here.
Leah Schreiber Johnson,
Here.
Mark Verhalen,
Here.
Darren Grabowski,
Here.
Jane Eichhoff.
Here.
And we have two additional guests joining us tonight. So, Franzine, are you here?
I'm here.
And Sophia, are you here?
I'm here as well.
So I want to welcome our student board representatives. Thank you for joining us. All right, I'll just preview something later on. We might hear from the ladies a little bit this year, maybe even at the next meeting. We're working on that. So we're glad you're both here tonight, and thank you for joining us.
All right. Item number 4 on the agenda, consent agenda A through D. If we have any questions.
No questions, but just I want to say thank you to the people who are choosing to retire. I think both of them have put in close to 20 plus years. Much appreciated for all the time and efforts that they put into our district. So thank you.
Agree. Anything else?
Just one point of clarity, Mr. Carini. You see there's a whole bunch of board minutes linked here. We've had a couple of questions about this. Like once board minutes are approved by the board, then they get updated on the website. And the minutes from the annual meeting are approved prior to next year's annual meeting. So we had a couple of questions about when they'd be up. Well, they'll be up tomorrow morning when Joe and I get in and update the website. So just wanted to make that point.
Is there any way that maybe we could put like some little statement on the website about that, so that maybe like an asterisk,
I'll make a note, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. All right. Do we need approval or anything on the last one? Are you good with that, Dan? The approval of 6.
No, you can move A through D if you want to.
All right. So if that's all approved, A through D. Public input, recess formal portion of the meeting to entertain comments or questions on the agenda items. Anybody wishing to, if there's somebody in the other room, to address the board?
We have no one that would like to address the board tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
So we'll reconvene formal portion of the meeting for board discussion and interaction. Action items, appointing a seat on the Oak Creek Community Center board.
So can anybody hear me? No, I didn't think so. I tried that other headset, either mine is not working. So I'm gonna try and take this out and see if you can hear me now. Can you hear me now if I talk to my computer?
No. Is Chris here?
Don't worry, folks. Mr. Technology is going to join us here for a second and get Mr. Cromie's headset working. So just give us a second.
That works. Well, I tried that pair too, and they didn't work. Okay. How about now?
Nope.
Oh, you're talking about the mic. Okay. I couldn't hear it either. Check. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
What about now?
Do you want to just come over and sit here and present for a second?
I'm gonna have to here. That's part of that, Frank.
So this is Andy. I'll be talking out of Frank's headphones here. So part of the land swap agreement that officially houses the property where the 9th grade center sits on the corner of Howell and Putes. The community center was part of that agreement. with the city backdating, I believe, around 1991. And when the city requested the property that would have been on Howell and Oakwood, where the industrial park is now, those properties were switched. Part of that contractual agreement in its originality or original form allowed for the city to have a seat on the executive board of the Oak Creek Community Center. So in reviewing the offer that was presented by Oak Creek Community Center, we went back and dug through the whole contract and we found that particular clause. And at this point, we would like to exercise the right to have a member on the Oak Creek Community Center Executive Board. I would be willing to do that, but I am free to take it or present it to anybody that wants. So what, if the board so would like, we would approve a seat and then we would approve a representative for that particular seat as well.
I motion Andy take it.
Sir Niglia,
Take the seat on
second.
the community center board, executive board.
Sir Niglia, seconds.
Okay, my question is, does the city still have a representative on the board as well, or do they take theirs off?
Yep. Can everybody hear me now out of my?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Go ahead, please, Mark.
Way to go, Chris.
Okay, I just asked if the city still had a representative on the board as well, or if they took their representative off the board.
The city does not have a formal representative in terms of the agreement. So when that agreement as part of the land swap became ours, that seat became our seat. And they
Okay.
relinquished their right to it.
So at that point, their representative stepped away from that board, and
I
it's
can't for 100% certain say that. That was long before my particular
Yeah.
time. But that seat should be our seat.
right, correct. So are we going to if that's the case, are we going to replace the person that's on there from the city, or are we adding somebody to the board and they're going to have to review if they want an extra board member on their board?
So regardless of how that all particular plays, we will claim one of the 5 executive board seats for the school district as owner of the lease.
I guess we can claim it, but do we have to I mean, this is all speculation because we don't know if the city still has a board
Yeah,
member on
we have a contractual obligation to a seat on their executive board.
Right, I
Their
understand that,
bylaws only allow for 5, so they'd have to go through an official bylaw
Right,
change.
that's what I just asked.
To
They'd
do
have
that?
to go to a process and get 7 then if they'd want a 7
Truthfully,
man
none of
board.
us are sitting on it, so we have no idea what they would
Yeah.
be willing to do. I can't answer that with any certainty.
All right. So we can request to have our representative on it, but we don't know if we'll even have one on it until they make room for us, possibly.
No, we are contractually obligated for a seat on their
Well, the
executive board.
only thing, you're contractually obligated, but they can't restructure their board unless they go through a meeting and vote to do that.
They would
Because
have
if
to
the city's
remove
got somebody on there that unless they instantly say, okay, we're going to relinquish our seat, you're not going to have a seat there if there's not one available.
Mark,
Absolutely, we will.
legal-
We have a contractual obligation to that seat.
We have a binding contract.
You do, but at the point when the city vacates it.
No,
Mark,
No.
the
we
city
own the
legal-
lease. So whatever seat they apportioned for the lease is ours. Whether they have someone sitting in it or not is arbitrary.
All right.
It's our seat.
All right. I'll let you argue the fact with them then.
And Andy, what would your responsibilities be on this board?
Very similar to what you do as a school board member. I would listen to what's happening and be a voting member of their executive board.
Okay, and providing them financial advice, that sort of thing?
No, I am
Okay.
not their
No.
financial advisor. I would be listening
Right.
and providing my comments as necessary and voting
Right.
as I think would be best for the Oak Creek Community Center on most things. And I would certainly have the school district as the forefront of any decisions that's made relative to our position and how it all affects, as I would have expected a city member to have made decisions based on how it affects the city as well when it pertains to city matters.
Okay.
Any other questions?
But if they asked you for your financial opinion, would you be
I would
giving
tell
that,
them
or-
I cannot advise them on their financial situation. My job is to advise here and not there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. All right, motion passed. Next school day camp programming phase 2.
So, as you know, last week Tuesday, the metrics for a return to school were updated. We now use the rainbow document, as we called it, throughout that particular meeting, and our binding criteria was moved from 2 items to 1 item, that essentially being the burden rate per 100,000. We are clearly within those thresholds. We've been within those thresholds for a very long period of time. The last couple of weeks, we've stemmed between, I believe, 152 and 172, or right around there. It's going to take a really large, very large change in what's happening with COVID for us to move out of 350. And when I say large, like ginormous. So we're really heading towards that September 28th date. And having students back. So we have to plan for what that will look like. As you know, a couple of weeks ago on August 24th, we passed the board approved the school day camp, which is essentially bringing around 50 students or so. It differs at the buildings, but approximately 50 per building into a day camp setting. That is currently facilitated through youth programs and is manned by our instructional aides currently and several of our special education aides. So we had a ready, made workforce for that particular program. We also provided food, breakfast, and lunch with that particular program. And throughout the course of the evening prior to the vote, several questions were asked about costs, and we ended up calculating a cost based on what are our actual new expenses, non-budgeted. So our actual new expenses, and we came up with a price point of $23.50 for a non-free or reduced student and $12 for a free or reduced student. And that $23.50, again, calculated out to what is the actual new cost that we would be absorbing to do that. Throughout the transition into phase 2, we have been talking as administrative staff, and our instructional aid pool will move right back into the classroom as we will have students in the building as of September 28th in our return to school. So we'll have 1 week where it's 2 days on, 2 days off. October 2nd is an off day, so everybody is out of school that particular day from a student standpoint. But our instructional aides will still have a full workload that particular week, and they'll be working with students, both our regular and our special education instructional aides. In order to provide the school day camp, in reviewing our workforce for that, we will need to hire individuals to run that particular program. So we're looking at hiring multiple 8-hour aides per building to run that particular program, because again, our instructional aides will be back doing their normally assigned duties of working with students and working with classes, and our special education aides helping out in special education rooms or with individual students, or however that each of those individuals are portioned out in a normal period. So what it came down to for elementary in week 1, and I'm kind of between page 1 and page 2 here, about 886 staff hours are needed to run week 1 of elementary day camp. It's important to note that elementary will only run week 1 because week 2 of phase 2, elementary is back 5 days a week. About 886 staff hours, $350 worth of supplies. Breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack. What we're really looking at is the afternoon snack on here is $735. The entire lunch program changed August 31st back to what was very similar happening in the spring, where breakfast and lunch are free to all students who take it. So we've lopped that cost off because that will just be absorbed through the National School Lunch Program. So we'll take care of that. And about 147 students, approximately 21 per building. So it's between 20 and 22. So I use 21 as a nice median number of the two. And we came up with a cost of $124.19. Now, again, that is unbudgeted currently. So all of the dollar amounts you see up above, hours for employees, supplies, and the afternoon snack is currently unbudgeted. So we came up with $124.19. Week 1 for middle school, 312 staff hours, $150 of supplies, approximately $200 for the afternoon snack, comes out to $150 per student, and that has a hard cap of 20. Now, those are lower than the normal 50-ish that we currently have, because with kids back in the building, we are far reduced on space of where they can go. So just because we have half of the amount of students at an elementary or half the amount at a middle school, all of the space is being utilized in some fashion. So we're really working to determine which locations we could theoretically move our regular daily education group of students out of and provide a space for them. And so we're really limited with space in general. And again, that's trying to keep cohorts of students together, minimize movements throughout the building so that once we come back to school, we are doing our very best to make sure we stay there. So week 1 of middle school is approximately $150 per student. Week 2, and then I have a question mark because we do not know how long we'll be in phase 2. Could be 4 weeks, 6, could be 12. So it could be an extended period of time. But in any case, we're at a price point of about $81.01 per student. And you'll ask why the difference between week 1 and week 2 at the middle school level. We're working on having some crossover training because this is a much greater extended period of time for our middle school students. So bringing those aides in the very first week to do some training to help them. And then after that, they should be good on their own, taking care of those students on a daily basis. So what I brought forth for you was a straight cost on the cost per student of new unbudgeted costs. The reason that was brought forth is because that's how the price point was determined on August 24th. It was working with a brand new unbudgeted cost and then the amount of students in it. The motion I left it as open-ended as possible. And again, I brought forth the costs for new unbudgeted costs that we would see. I really want the board to take a look at it and discuss, knowing that there's a pretty big difference between that $23.50 price point and the new costs that are associated here, to allow the board an opportunity to discuss what they feel would be best in this particular situation. So those were the new costs as presented. Again, it's about 20 students per week at building, still covers breakfast and lunch, covers an afternoon snack, but we do have to hire a new staff to do that, as the staff currently in those particular positions are now being assigned back to their normal operating positions.
So do we have a motion?
So ICOF will motion, for the sake of discussion. I need it noted that I'm not saying that this is what I agree with, but for the sake of discussion, that actual costs are what is charged families who utilize this program.
And Cerniglia seconds for the same reasons.
Okay, discussion.
I have
Oh, go ahead, Jay. Answer your motion. Go ahead.
my question was, you had mentioned costs. Is that based on the current number of students that are utilizing the program? And how might that change if families say, we had trouble when it was 5 days a week at home, but now that it's only 2 or 3 in, let's say, middle school, we can make something else work? And would these costs increase if the number of people in the program were less?
So I'll answer the first question or the last question first. So once a price point is set, if only one person signs up, obviously we would reduce staffing, but we would still pay for a supervisor to be there for one child. If no one signs up for the building, we would certainly not hire at that particular building. So once a price point is set, we're going to be at that particular price point. The school day camp, as it's currently constructed, is week to week. So every week, parents have to re-sign up through youth programs. And so our numbers have fluctuated slightly throughout the current 3 weeks that we've been in. I'm assuming they'll be slightly different next week as well. And we're looking at, again, about 20 students per building, 21 at elementary and 20 at the middle school. So I don't know what that will be, but certainly if there are only 10 students sign up, we're going to run in the red on that. So this is like as close to black as we could possibly make it down to the penny for what we anticipate. And I use a median salary as well. So we don't have these people on staff. So at about a median price point of what we would hire our staff is what I'm using, with the associated income tax and Social Security that we would be paying on their behalf.
Just as a follow-up question, I know a number of our aides currently work, let's say 5 hours a day, would we be looking at offering them additional hours as opposed to hiring additionally?
So at this point, we're looking at hiring 8-hour aid positions for a limited term, simply to avoid just the cross grouping. So if they work with students during the day and then come over here for a portion of the day, the other piece is continuity of the program. And so those 5.5-hour aides are gone some portion of the day between just 8 and 3 for sake of discussion. And so for continuity of program, to have somebody there at the start of the day who's also there at the end of the day is an important consideration as well.
Okay, thank you.
So looking at the plan here that's as written, I have some reservations about the idea of increasing the cost of care for that 1 week, especially for the elementary students, so extremely. You know, there's a certain expectation now for those families that we've done our best to make an affordable price and to increase that fivefold, even if we are covering our costs. Just seems like a lot to ask of everyone for just that 1 week. And we're also talking about partial week, right? Because the kids are going to be in their normal classrooms for some of those days.
Right.
So I would like for us to consider what it would mean for the district to continue to subsidize for that 1 week for those elementary kids, so that families are not suddenly bearing the burden of an extremely higher cost care for just a couple of days.
Yep. So great question. So this program currently runs as a mix of Fund 80 and Fund 10 because we're using our budgeted instructional aides as of right now. Once we transition to phase 2, all of our aides our work population will be pulled back into the normal assignments, and this will transition to a Fund 80 community program. And so this really runs through Fund 80. So per Cheryl's question earlier related to the OCC board, this is just the advisement related to finances on this particular piece. When Fund 80, or if Fund 80 runs a shortfall for the year, it is required by DPI to levy whatever shortfall that is as part of the October 15th or end of October tax levy. And so should the board tonight approve something short of this, there is potential that that amount falls right into the tax levy. And again, DPI does not provide us an avenue around that. If Fund 80 is read at the end of the year negative, it is required to be made whole through the fund through a tax levy.
How much would that?
I was going to say, it's only elementary students, right?
Yeah.
For 1
How
week.
much would that amount to?
So
217,000 is roughly a penny per 100,000 maybe, or per thousand. So $100,000 would be $1. The average price point of the house is about 260,000. So like $2.60. I'm sorry, 26 cents or something like that.
Right.
Wait, what would be 26 cents?
It'd be like an additional 26 cents or something like that on an average house.
To cover the total of
calculated out here, and that'll be
$7,000.
a little. To give us an accurate point, I think it's a penny per thousand. So times 260.
Where's the 260 coming from?
Average house of 260,000.
Oh, okay.
So a penny per house would put us at $26 of property tax on an average house in Oak Creek.
To cover what number though?
To cover, if this, say it was 0 and we were covering the whole thing at elementary, because I think we're talking about elementary at this point. Is that correct?
Right. So I'm missing part of your math. So if we continue to charge families $23.50, then they're covering about $3,454 of the cost of the $17,170. So we would be essentially levying for $14,000.
So we'd probably be at about $20 on the average Oak Creek house at that point.
And that doesn't include what other things we got to levy yet.
But that's only if we find we're on a shortfall, right?
That's if we're in a shortfall. So there's lots of other things that youth programs does that have a chance to shake this out. But again, we're also in a pandemic year, so we saw how that ended us last year in a shortfall in Fund 80 of about $5,000 or so. So it's a little bit less predictable than it has been in previous years.
You're saying that the average home in Oak Creek would have their cost increase by $20 to cover a total of $14,000? That math does
The
not work
property
out.
taxes that apportioned out is about a penny to the levy. A penny per $100,000 of or per $1,000 of assessed value.
It's about $20.
So we're talking about $2, not $20.
So
I agree.
1,000. Oh, 26. Yeah, sorry. Yes, 20 cents. Thank you. Yes.
We're talking about $2, not $20.
Yes, $2.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Now who's the numbers girl? What up?
But it doesn't still think about all other things that were levy either. So
yeah.
I was just going to ask you real quick. Jane kind of hit on it with the aides. You're going to hire 8 new aides. This is a hypothetical. So we roll it out. We're going first week, September 28th, AB. We go second week, October 5th, 5 days a week, get that down. And just say maybe a week into it, 2 weeks into it, like I said, hypothetical, COVID hits, boom, we're shut down. What happens to those 8 aides? I know you said we release them, or do they still stay employed somehow?
So if we don't have work for them, they don't work. We don't pay them, they don't
and they'll
work.
know this, no unemployment or nothing like that?
They could certainly claim unemployment, but for 2 weeks of work, that would be a minimal expense.
Okay, I was just curious.
How many, what is there a concern about being able to find aides to be able to fill these positions?
Absolutely. There's concern about funding or finding aides for our current openings right now, which is why we went to an 8-hour position, because we felt we would have a better opportunity to find multiple people to run multiple schools. So that was certainly a consideration of moving to that 8-hour time frame.
I know we're in short time frames. Is there any type of way to survey the families that are currently part of the program on who would want to continue in
We
the
certainly
program?
could, but then we would be calling a special board meeting to come back and approve this, because our next board meeting is September 28th, which would be the first day of this program.
any other questions?
Andy, do you know, to Frank's point of being cognizant of other things that we might have to levy for, are there anything else out there that we're not aware of without our usual, the usual things, the usual suspects on our levy list?
I think our biggest thing is Aspire. Is the number one. It's the largest thing that youth programs does. But right now, with the amount of students who are staying home for OC virtual, so that obviously is going to have an effect on it. And the amount of students who are moving through a parent drop-off and a parent pickup are going to affect that as well. So they're going to move with before and after school. There's still a good number of the population who is working from home. I don't have any particular data on that other than the people that I talk to in our neighborhood who are still working at home, or friends of my kids who are still working at home, who are dropping their children off or picking them up, or plan to drop them off or pick them up. And so we're going to run into that. We're going to probably not lose that much staffing in the after school program, because we still want to cohort those kids or move them through in smaller groups, but we'll probably have less of them to pay for the staff that is supervising those after school and before school programs.
You noted on here that there would be no additional cost to the program if we did start busing. Can you explain that?
Yep. So they would just hop on the routes that we currently run. So we have seats available on those runs. Again, from the elementary point of view, come week 2, we won't have to worry about busing an elementary student. And so when we take half of the middle school population and we're only busing half of them a day to sprinkle a potential of 40 students onto somewhere around 25, 30 routes would be a little more than one per route. If you shook them out evenly. Now, I don't know exactly where these students will live, but on average.
I think you're muted, Leah.
You're muted.
You know, buses, we've talked about buses as being a possible point of exposure. Is there any concern with the cohorting of the day camp getting, I mean, I guess it's all together now.
The answer is yes, but no different than any of the other students on the bus because they're not being picked up by class. They're being picked up by house location and being delivered to school. And then we try to cohort them during the day.
Right.
But the key with the busing and seats on the bus is at least we have a metric to say, well, so-and-so sits in seat A1 or whatever, however they're numbering them. We know who is in the proximity on the bus or who would have to quarantine, or we could pass that information off to the health department who would tell us who we would have to quarantine.
You'd have
There
a
will be
route.
assigned seats on the bus.
You'd have a route. You'd have a list. Yep.
There's assigned seating on the bus.
Can I shuffle us a little bit over to the middle school topic? We've talked about the elementary week 1, but I noticed that week 1 for middle school is almost twice the cost of the rest of the weeks. I wonder if it wouldn't make more sense to kind of create an average. I mean, to me, it seems strange that we would charge people twice as much for these 2 days and then half for these days. Would it be reasonable to choose a price point that would start to absorb the extra cost of running camp week 1?
So the board is free to do what they want. I just presented the costs as the actual costs that will be incurred. In the middle school, I did it by week 1 and then week 2 through whatever, simply because that week 1 is a transition week. So there'll be some overlap of coverage to get the continuity moving forward, but the board is free to do as they please. Remember that our sign up is by week, so this would also be by week as well. So just as we're doing now, the first 50 that sign up for Carrollton or Cedar Hills are the 50 that get it. And so this would be the first 20 that sign up at East, and the first 20 at West would be the 20 that are going to get it. So however the board chooses to do the costing, again, I just presented unbudgeted costs.
So I ran some numbers for this, and if we took 5 weeks of camp and put the total cost of running 5 weeks of camp and divided it evenly across the weeks, divided that by 40 for the number of students, we'd cover the cost if we charged $86.
For the middle school?
For the middle school. We'd cover that extra cost incurred to run week 1 by charging $86. And that would be over only 5 weeks. So
Andy, can you scroll down just a little bit more so on the screen you can see the price for, perfect, that's great, thank you.
just, you know, from a customer service point of view, it just seems bizarre that I would walk into McDonald's and, oh, we're a little short on burgers today, so it's going to be $40
5
for
times the cost.
Come back tomorrow and it'll be $8. You know, like it's just,
right.
I would like for us to do what any business would do when offering a service over amount of time and pick a price point that takes into consideration these fluctuations instead of creating that kind of added level of stress for the people who might need this care.
Yeah, I feel better about doing it that way. I was actually looking at the $81, the lowest price point, but I think 86 sounds good too. Yeah.
That's your, what is, that's what you're coming up with? So let me do it again.
Were you averaging the 3?
Oh, you know what I was doing? I was just doing the staff hours. So you're right. My number would be wrong because I was totaling the staff hours. I wasn't including the supplies and meals.
You're at 94.
Yeah, Yeah, his number is 94.
Mhm.
So what the difference of that gap would go towards taxes then? Is that what you're saying?
Say that again, Frank.
No,
If
no,
we
it
have a
would cover
shortfall.
that increased cost of week one.
Yep.
What Leah's saying is if you use the price point of it's $94.81, but pick $94 or 95 or whatever.
Yep.
For 5 weeks, you break even with the increased first week cost, the lower 2 through 5.
Yeah, you're
At
just
5
averaging
weeks
it.
is your break even point.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Would this be for all of the grades or just the middle school?
Middle
This is
school.
that number is just middle school, but again, the board can set those price points. You can set different price points for elementary and middle school. You could set a different price point for week 1 and weeks 2 through whatever. You can.
That'd be too confusing.
Yeah.
I say you go with the break-even point because the taxpayers that don't have kids in the school, they're not going to want to pay for that.
Yeah, I
You got to
agree.
you can't raise the you can't you got to go with the break-even point.
I would
Sorry,
agree.
service to the office. You get good numbers here, it's great, but
Yeah,
you cannot put it in the taxpayers.
I do not have a horse in the race. I'm simply presenting the unbudgeted costs.
So right now we have a motion on the table from Jane and a second from Cheryl, and a lot of discussion around raising a different motion. So does the board feel they have a new motion they may have arrived at that you'd like to vet out and discuss through, and then we withdraw these two, or?
I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
At this $94, this middle road, that you said would only cover the middle school, correct? Or would cover everybody?
We're just talking about
comes from the middle
wait,
school.
Wait, I got too many people talking. I can't hear.
The $94 comes from only the middle school.
Okay.
Now you can assign it to the elementary school. You could do whatever you want, but that $94 comes from the week 1 of middle school and then weeks 2 through 5 of middle school.
So if
But
you
again, I would
have,
assume a price point would be assigned then through week 12. Should it go through week 12, or if it only goes through week 3, it would end at week 3.
so currently for Aspire, is there a different cost for elementary versus middle school?
Heather, are you on to answer that?
I am on, and there is a different price point. It's $200 a month for before and after care for the mix, which is the middle school program. So that's dropping your child off as early as 6:30 in the morning and picking them up as late as 6 o'clock at night. So those families that would need basically 12 hours of care would be $200 a month plus the whatever you're looking at per week.
And how does that compare to what an elementary would do for the same thing?
Before and after care at the elementary level is about $220 before and after per month. It depends on how you what you sign up for in the program. If you need drop-off care, drop-in care, or if you're signing up for our pay by the month program or our auto pay program.
So if you in a air quotes normal year, if you are a family with an elementary and a middle school child and you are dropping them off and picking them up at the same times, is it an equal cost for your elementary and your middle schooler?
It's a little bit more for your elementary because our ratios are higher.
Okay, and I was just asking, thinking if we went with the model where we're doing actual costs for this, wondering,
Right.
we would be charging more for someone to have for their elementary student and less than their middle school. I was wondering if that was consistent with what's done with Aspire.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yes,
like
it is. Yes,
okay,
it
thank
is.
you.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I have a proposal. So what if we use the $94 that breaks us even for the cost of running the day camp for middle schoolers? What if we use that same price point for the elementary single week? That would cover almost 14,000 of the total cost. Times 147 students. So I'm using the number that's here. So 147 students at $94 is about it's a little under $14,000. The total cost of running the camp we said was more like 18, Andy. So you know, the $4,000 difference would be something that we could actually ask youth programs to look at potentially finding ways to absorb over the year. And if they can't, then we will deal with the levy issue later. But $4,000 would be a pretty probably a pretty minor levy, if any at all. And I think that it would go a long way to help the families out who are already going to be in shock by this pretty severe increase in that state camp cost, to just have a little leeway over the 125.
I like
Not here.
and
Trying to get this. That's it. Can you hear me now?
No.
no.
I don't know. I'm gonna speak up. Sorry.
But just a point to note that youth programs runs a little bit different than our typical district in that each of the programs try to run about break even. So the basketball tries to run break even, and Aspire tries to run break even. So to try to find money would be potentially raising fees in a sport or activity to try to pay for this. And so I don't know if raising a basketball fee to pay for this is in the best interest of the people that only chose to play basketball and to not participate in this. I'm not saying the levy potentially isn't the idea, but to try to find it would mean raising fees and something else not associated with this whatsoever.
Well, and hearing you say that, Andy, originally I agreed. I liked evening things out. The 4,000, I thought if we can find that from somewhere else, great. But hearing Andy say the only way to do that would be to charge others more, I'm going to go back to what Darren said. I struggle with levying any more than we have to the public, especially to cover the cost for 147 students. I get that it could be pennies that someone sees an increase on their tax, but I'm just really sensitive to every time we're increasing people's taxes, especially if it's the entire community covering the cost for a small group of students.
Yeah, I agree. I had in my mind that $4,000 was something that over the course of a year
you should be able to find elsewhere.
Seems like a reasonable dollar amount, but yeah, if there's just no way to do that without raising costs for others, then yeah, that's a problem.
So basically, we agree on like $94 for the middle school and the elementary, $124.19.
If that doesn't raise the levy in any way for this
That should
program,
be the flattened curve.
that's agreeable because I already made my point.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I guess that's how we decided the first time that we were doing whatever it cost to break even. I do agree with Leah in saying all of a sudden the cost goes up fivefold is concerning to me, but it is covering the cost.
And Andy, we have no other additional aides that can take additional or.
I think the folks understand that we're just covering costs. We're not here to make any money.
So
It's just for 1 week.
Yeah, Frank asked the question if we have any additional aides. So currently we are searching for aides because our aid population, a good portion of them are parents in the district, and those parents have either elected to have their children go to OC virtual, or they are going to be home on the days that their children are going to be off during week 1, or if they're middle school, weeks 2 through whenever. And so our population of current aides is already thin. We have some on a leave of absence, so we're just trying to fill our regular instructional aid population right now. So to pull away from that to run this would spread that even thinner. So I personally would not advise it at the time, but again, the board can help with those, but I would not advise it, and I would assume administration would not advise that as well.
No, we have enough challenges right now with our existing staffing model.
Would it be unreasonable to think about it as a daily thing so that people don't have to commit to such a high cost for the week if they
That's a good
Didn't
point.
need the whole
So
week.
you're just saying if we're saying it's going to be 90 something for middle school, it would
Break
be
it down by day.
it would be 3 days, so we're going to say 30 per day, and someone could.
No. I'm just talking about elementary, just that 1 week. I'm not talking about everybody. That's great. That's a lot of.
work.
I'm just talking about the kids who are already in our elementary day camp, who need continuation of care for that 1 week, where now we're saying it's 5 times more. Well, what if a family really cannot do that, but they have a day in there that is like the day that they really need? Is it unreasonable? Somebody, Heather, hop in. Feel free to tell me, like, no way we can pull that off. I'm just wondering if we could give people a chance to pay 40 for the day that they needed instead of 125 for the whole week.
So we could do that. The challenge is just making sure that, when parents sign up, it would be it's challenging to have them sign up daily because you don't know which kids you're going to have on any given day, and setting up those cohorts based on grade level and making sure that you have the staff for those certain grades, because you're going to be learning asynchronously that day. So that part of it is a bit of a challenge to train staff to be able to help the kids that they've got when it's always a different group of children day by day over the course of that week, versus you've got the group of children, who's going to be there. But certainly registration we can do by day. And we have done that for like our school days out camp is by day.
Heather, would we be offering this on that Friday when school is out, or if school is out? Andy's saying yes, we would. Okay, so it
Yes,
could
we would.
technically be 3 days that week that elementary students actually.
Yes.
Everybody.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm only proposing this daily thing just for the elementary group because the cost is higher and because it's just the 1 week. There is no possibility of week 2 or beyond. And I'm just trying to find a way for us to be flexible and meet people where they are, but still follow
I appreciate that.
the goal that I think is a reasonable one too, which is to not pass this cost off onto other people if we can avoid it.
And the $40 a day, for instance, our school day out camp is $45 for the day. That's what we normally would charge. So that's not anything higher. I mean, it's $5 lower, but it's reasonable for what parents have paid for a daily rate and full day care.
That sounds good.
Do we anticipate having any issues since it's, let's say Carrollton, the first 50 families that sign up? Are there more than that now? I mean, are we going to be in this, like, people standing at the doorway, I mean, are we going to be?
No. We're looking at, I thought we were just offering this for people who were already in it.
Well, I heard Andy say something about we're signing up.
Heather's trying to respond right now. Go ahead, Heather.
So what we did was shared this information with those folks that are currently registered and told them that tomorrow morning they could start registration. We are not promoting it to others because we want to be able to give those folks that have currently registered that opportunity first. But there's not a way for us to not allow others to register because it will be open online through our system. So we can't bump certain people out or make only certain people have access to it. We've just shared it with those that have currently been enrolled first. And then if those folks don't fill all of those spaces, then we could ask those that are on our wait lists to register for them.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion?
There's an active motion on the floor right now. Jane moved for actual costs and Cheryl seconded.
I am happy to rescind mine if Leah's is a little different, actual costs, but shared or averaged for middle school and broken out daily for elementary school. So I will rescind my, I'll rescind my motion.
Jane rescinds her motion.
And Soniglia rescinds her second.
Okay. Now, would anyone like to make a new motion?
Well, it sounded to me like Jane had it, but I'll go ahead and move to offer elementary school a daily option for that 1 week of camp at a rate of $40. I mean, I'm hesitant to say the 40 because I would like for the actual math to be done by finance, but at a daily rate, maybe matching or.
You wanted it 1/3 of the rate of 124.19.
Yes, please. Is that it?
$40.40.
$40.40. Thank you.
4140.
4140. Okay.
Okay, I'll restate it to this point.
Sure.
LSJ moves to offer elementary with the daily option for 1 week at a rate of $41.40
per day.
Per day.
And the middle school day camps to be set at $94 a week.
Okay, to restate, LSJ moves to offer elementary daily option for 1 week at a rate of $41.40 per day, and middle school at $94 a week thereafter.
Malat second.
We'll go thereafter because it's just.
Got it. Just
94.
period. Yep.
Who's second?
Malat.
All right, discussion.
So that's going to be a break-even point, correct, Andy? Those numbers, where it's no charge to the taxpayers.
So the elementary.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? I do not have answers. What is going on?
I do hear.
You're possessed.
How about that?
No.
Still, it's cursed.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming that we fill all the seats, that would be a break-even point. And then again, if we get the 5 weeks with the middle school, that would be a break-even point. Anything short of that would be slightly lower, and anything after that would be slightly higher.
Is there at any point where, is there a possibility? I mean, is there any way that we would like make money on this? So my guess is what I'm trying to get is if we have so many people in it that we're making money, then I would want to find a way to be able to give money back to those families.
Well, I would think that the board could say weeks 1 through 5 at the middle school are the $95 price point, and it moves to the $81 price point starting at week 6 and thereafter to be break even.
Okay.
Okay.
And then just to add to Cheryl's statement just now, we're already running the numbers at full capacity, so there wouldn't be able to be more people in it.
Okay. You're right. You're right. Sorry. I'm a visual person. It's hard for me to like.
So is the motion, everybody's good with the motion?
One last question. I just, when we talked before about a daily rate, so we said we can do the daily rate, but that's
For the elementary.
okay. Just for elementary.
Just that 1 week.
Okay. I thought that Heather had said. So Heather was saying that wouldn't be possible to do the sign up thing. Like
No, we can offer a daily rate. We have done that in
No,
the past.
it's right. It's right in the motion.
Okay.
Leah moves to offer elementary with a daily option for 1 week at a rate of $41.40 per day, and the middle school option at $94 a week.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been
Amy did.
seconded by Amy. It's active on the floor.
So if they come 3 days a week, you're missing $80 for the other 2 days that they're not there. Is that not good? What you're shaking your head? No. What's up?
No, school will be in session, so they'll be in school.
Say it again.
School will be in session, so they will be in school. So
Okay,
they.
so if they're only doing 3 days a week, paying $120 for the week. The other $80, that's not going to be covered by us. That's still a break even.
The price point that Leah motioned and was seconded by Amy is $41.40 per day. So if they sign up for all 3 days of elementary, that's $124.20 or whatever $41.40 times 3 is.
Right. What I'm
So
saying
they
is
would be
Say they only
paying
do
for all
2
4 days.
days, and that one day they don't. That's $41. We're
We
out.
would be trying to fill that with another student that only needs it on Friday. So if they need a Tuesday, Thursday, but not Friday, ideally somebody that only needs a
I'm just looking
Friday
for a
would be
break
signing up.
even over the whole board, so taxpayers don't have to pay any kind of leverage.
There is the potential that we only fill 10 of those seats and we still have everybody hired.
No.
So it's not possible. It's not possible to guarantee it unless you charge one person the entire allotment and everybody else comes after that. So
But we're making our
we're
best,
making the best
our best
educated
guess.
guess we can.
Just an
I know.
assumption.
I know.
Mhm.
I got you. It's a pandemic. I understand.
I just asked if we can revisit after we get after everybody signs up parent wise.
And then redo the costing again after people have already signed up at a price they've already agreed to.
I guess you're right about that. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just thinking out loud.
Yep, that's okay.
I just want to make sure we, like, when we present this, hopefully it's presented so that we don't have some of the uproar we had the last time. But maybe there's no way to avoid that either. So
Well, and now that the free and reduced lunch aspect is taken out of it, that's going to be a huge hit at $41 a day for those elementary. I know it's only a week, but that's a lot of money for those folks. So
Yep, I agree. Okay, any other question or discussion? Okay, roll call. Jane,
Yes.
Cheryl,
yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Amy,
yes.
Leah,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. All right, elementary report card indicator math and literacy update.
Okay, we have Mr. Krennick joining us.
Hello.
Hello.
That's
So
his
this,
second reading. John's gone through this once already. John, do you have anything to add, to build on that we haven't talked about already?
I do not. It's pretty straightforward, based on the Wisconsin academic standards that we approved back in July.
Nope, I'm
So
glad John's here with us. We had a pretty good discussion on this first time around, but if anybody's got questions for John, he's ready to answer them.
Do we have a motion?
So Nigley moves to approve.
Eichhoff seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Motion approved. And then we have the second reading on policy 431.1, the virtual remote blended attendance policy.
So we went through this 2 weeks ago. For information, it's really, there's not a lot out there that we could pull from other districts. So I took the information from DPI, the website, and their recommendation, along with working with WASP, and really trying to come up with different scenarios so that if a student was kept home for COVID or symptoms asymptomatic, they could still attend the lesson live through like what we're doing. Work completion would also be considered to be present. So if the student, let's say, couldn't make the live lesson, the lessons were recorded, they watch the recorded lesson and complete the activity in the class for that day, they would be considered present for that day. It also would be true for a scenario like if the health department or a doctor, physician were to quarantine a student, they could, if they're well enough, they could still attend school through a live session. Work completion, they would be considered present. And then the fourth scenario is just discussing that if a student is sick, they can't do either the live session, they can't do the recorded, they're just so sick that they can't do any work, they would then be considered absent and called in by the parent or guardian.
I'll note that John had to pull this together rather quickly here in some uncharted territory. He did a good job of bringing this all to us here for consideration.
Are we voting on that, or is that
That's
coming
right.
back?
That's
Okay.
right. It needs a motion.
So Nigley moves to approve.
Eichhoff seconds.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to ask, how has the tracking of attendance been the first week or so of school here?
That is a great question. I'm glad that you asked that, Amy. Attendance has been really, really good. Attendance has been extremely high. We had a principal meeting last week, and principals were commenting on how well students were attending. And I think a big part of the way we restructured things from the spring, and what we learned from the spring, is having a scheduled time for a specific class that student knows from 8 o'clock to 8:40, I have math or literacy or social studies or science or an elective or CTE course. That's really helped a lot. Just having those structures in place has been a big change.
Thank you for like seeing what other communities had, because that was actually one of my questions. So obviously you said there wasn't very little, but thank you for looking into that. Also, I just refresh my memory. Will this also apply to the people in our Admentum program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so attendance would be taken like per class?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it's not a lot different. I mean, it is different in the sense that let's say elementary is a little bit easier because you're constantly with your kids all day long.
Right.
You don't necessarily have periods at the elementary level. But somebody could be sick at the elementary level and still tune in to a live lesson, certainly. And the same would be true, is that they would be considered present for that day if they're well enough to do and participate. At the secondary level, the attendance secretaries, if a parent calls in, we would mark it medically excused. And then if that student were to attend a live session or turn in work completion from that class, the teacher then could go back and mark present for that day.
Okay. What do we do with, because we have families who will be remote, virtual. What happens if there are technology issues, which can and have been happening?
Sure. We take it on an individual basis and work with the student and the families.
Okay.
Our tech team has been, like the tech center next door where we have our remote viewers tonight, has been operating. I can't commend the tech team enough on the individual efforts they've made to help people on a one-to-one basis, and that will continue, of course.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure that somebody doesn't, because their computer went down or they can't connect or something, that they're going to be marked absent. So I just want to be able to we can reassure people that we will work with you. Just talk.
Teachers, principals, everybody's working on that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And Cheryl, just the flexibility that our attendance policy provides that we have, in front of you today, that's what it's for. It's to provide that flexibility. If a student's sick, if there's tech issues, we're certainly going to work with them and not, mark them absent because something happened with their computer.
Okay.
So John, when we get to blended where students are in person some days and home some days, obviously teachers will not be doing both on any given day. So my last name E, my kids will be at school on Monday and Wednesday. If they are sick on a Monday or a Wednesday, those are the days the teachers are teaching them in person. There really isn't a watch something later because.
No, there is. The teacher will be recording, like if your daughter was at home, the teacher would know that they're out by checking Infinite Campus. They would record that lesson and post it at the end of the day.
Okay, so they've decided that teachers, when they're teaching live to a class, are also going to be recording their teaching that day. Okay.
Providing they have students that are absent for X, Y, or Z.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Informational items, upcoming school board agendas.
So just very quickly, later on in the month, we'll have Troy back to talk comp plan. This is an annual discussion. We'll hear from Andy regarding the August budget report, high school course changes and new courses all annual. And the student communication update, I nebulously titled an update from Franzine and Sophia. So they'll be here to share with us, and the title might change before we come back around and hear from them.
Okay.
Early October meetings, comp plan comes back, course changes come back, and will be updated by the business office on pupil count, revenue limit, and budget adoption processes. These are the required annuals. Most of these are things we see every year. It might grow. These are just the things I know for certain you will see.
Is there, at any point, somewhere in here, could we get a update on buildings and where we are with that?
Sure. Yep. That I'll just say quickly that that's one of the silver linings of the pandemic. So, but I'll get that in here at some point.
Because I tell you, every time I drive by and see what's being done at the high school with the tech ed area and the performing arts center, it just gives me goosebumps.
Let's just fill them up with kids.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. The board will consider a motion to convene in closed session, First Wisconsin statutes 19.851E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, invested of public funds, or conducting other specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Do I have a motion?
So do I move to approve?
I'll second.
We'll
Amy
take.
can have it.
So I have Amy for the second. And this is a roll call vote. And for anybody watching the stream of this later on, the board will go into closed, mute mics and cameras, have a discussion, come back out and break the meeting. It could take anywhere from 5 minutes to several hours. So,
Jane,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Leah, Mark,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, everyone.
an open session now.
Mm-hmm.
You gave a thumbs up.
Gave the thumbs up. Yep.
Good to go. Then we can, if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Yep.
I think the motions to adjourn.
Grabowski seconds.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bennon. We're done.
Thank you.